This is Saturday, October 24th, 2020. What you're looking at is a brand new 12,000 BTU Senville outside unit. I replaced it last night. I replaced that unit right there. That unit's been in service for about 4 years, going on 5 years. And it works really hard in the summer, and that was my practice unit, like a kid having an old car to practice on when he's 17 or 18. That was my practice unit. I haven't paid anybody to work on that or work on these two systems in about 2 or 3 years. And in the last 2 or 3 years, I've done all the maintenance. I installed these originally. I installed them, so I didn't pay any servicemen to install them. I put the electrical boxes in. I installed the circuit breaker and the power panel on the side of the house. I ran the wire to the breakout box. I ran all the plumbing. What you're looking at is what I completed last night. These are the refrigerant lines. This new unit comes pre-charged, and I'm hoping it comes pre-charged with enough for a 16 or 18 foot run, because if you follow these lines right here, those plastic covered lines, that's a refrigerant line. So you got about 4 feet there, you got about 6 or 7 feet here, and then you got about 10 in the house, so no more than 18 foot a run. And I'm hoping that this is pre-serviced enough that I won't have to add any refrigerant. I'm going to have a amp meter hooked onto that box here, and if it's drawing good amps, the higher the amps, the bigger the charge, because it means more pressure in the unit. The higher the pressure, the higher the amps. It has to draw the turn, the compression. But today, my challenge today is this unit right here. I have to hook those wires up to right there. Okay, these 3 wires right here, one, 2, and 3, come out of the unit and go to, they talk to the inside unit on the wall. L1 and L2 are your 220 hot wires coming into the unit. Okay, so and because this was painted, I painted the other one. As you see, the paint on here, it doesn't match. So I'm going to go to the trouble of unlocking those lock nuts and putting the one that came with it. But as you can see, it's not painted. I went to a lot of trouble when I first bought these years ago. I painted them to match the house. This one right here, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'm sure it's shot. It made a lot of noise. It made a lot of noise. It was, it's like a knock in an engine. Eventually, you run it and you run it and run it until the engine finally quit, and that's what I did. I didn't want to turn it off in the middle of summer, so I let it run, making a lot of noise. But what I've got going on now is I got to hook up those wires, take the time to do it, and then I have to do a vacuum check. I have to do a vacuum check on those lines. If I do a vacuum check on those lines and we have no decay, if I do a vacuum check on those lines, I'm going to use that port right there. Everything is closed. Now, behind these 2 caps are Allen screws, and they should be screwed all the way in, holding the pre-charge. Once I've got it vacuumed down, these lines vacuumed down, and they're vacuumed as far as I can take them, like 30, minus 30, whatever, atmospheres. everything gets closed off, and then you back off these Allen wrenches. And when you back off these Allen wrenches, it allows the pre-charge to fill these lines. And then it's just a matter of turning it on, and hopefully there's enough pre-charge in this system that I won't have to add. If my amp meter says we're running cool amps, and I go inside and I've got a 10 to 15 degree drop from the air going in to the air coming out of the unit, and it's quiet and running good, I'm going to leave it alone. I do have the refrigerant to service it if need be, but hopefully I don't have to touch it. Once I release the gas into the lines and I turn it on, hopefully after that I won't have to touch it for a long time. I'm making this video for YouTube and some feedback video to Sunville technical people. Attention, Sam sold me this unit right here. This unit is a replacement unit. The older one, I showed it in a video earlier, was wore out. I tried a motherboard for it, it didn't fix it. I think the compressor was shot. But anyway, because I do all my own work and I do all my own servicing, it saves me a tremendous amount of money over the years. So my labor bought this new one. I could have thrown parts at the old one for two more times, ordering parts and then going through the labor, and I just ordered another one. Now the inside unit is the original unit and it's compatible with this. This is a twin of the original. Overnight I moved it back into place, and I've done a vacuum test on it. Right now, maybe you hear that the vacuum pump is running. I've been running the vacuum pump for over an hour. To get the most extreme vacuum I can get on this, because I know the system is tight. I did a vacuum test on it this morning where I let the pump run for about 45 minutes, and it got down to like 25 atmospheres, and it stayed there for about 45 minutes. I took a break for 45 minutes, I came back and the needle hadn't moved. So, but as soon as I released one of the valves here, we lost a little pressure. So, I closed the valve. I've had the pump running now for almost an hour. What I'm going to do is allow the refrigerant that's in here in the unit. It comes pre-charged, and I'll explain that when I pick up the camera here in a minute. It comes pre-charged with enough refrigerant. So what I'm doing now is we're vacuuming out the lines, and when I close the valve and turn off the pump, there'll be like 25 atmospheres, negative atmospheres of negative pressure inside the refrigerant lines. So then I take an Allen wrench, and these two ports right here, you back them out, and that breaks the seal, and it allows the refrigerant inside the pre-charge to be sucked into these lines by that 25 negative atmospheres, or millibars, whatever you want to call it. But that's what I'm about to do now, and this is the big test because I'm doing a gamble. I'm not sure if the inside unit worked great, but the outside unit never responded to it. It sit dead. It was simple last night and this morning to change everything over. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get the camera and I'm going to walk around here and show you up close what I expect and what I hope to happen when I turn on the system. First of all, this is the main focus of everything we're doing right now. You see that needle is all the way to the right of that black area. Well, that's about 25 millibars or 25 atmospheres or 25 negative. I've been running this now for an hour. Now I'll back up, but that's what's going to happen is that is tapped in. I've got that tapped in or teed off this valve. This valve, this line right here is going back to the vacuum pump. And there's a vacuum pump. It's been running for an hour. The valve I'm going to close, and I closed before, is this valve. I closed it before and I isolated the pump away from the system. So when I closed this valve, the only thing that was in the system was the meter and the refrigerant lines. The two Allen screws are the two valves that allow the fluid out of this unit here. This unit has got enough fluid in it for about, I think, 16 feet of run. So here in a minute, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to record it. But there's always a chance of failure. I don't know. If the inside unit worked like it did the other day, then it should turn this thing on, and the compressor should come on, and it should start working. Now, for the boys back in Montreal at Senville, I've got everything hooked up. The two grounds are hooked up. The white is hooked to L1. The black is hooked. We've got red, black, and white hooked up. The ground is hooked up. Everything is copacetic there. I put that gooey gummy stuff. It's for connections all over all the connections. When I put these two connectors on last night, I put that gooey, it's good to seal. Now, I want to show you behind here are the two Allen, and I want to, if I can, I'll see if we can get a close-up. You're going to be able to look into the female part. You got to back it out. Alright, you can see in there's an Allen head, and it's all the way in, and it's sealing the refrigerant inside of the brand new outside unit. There's one for the, there's not really a return and a feed like in a traditional. They sort of like work together, but you can see the Allen. What I'm going to do here in a minute, because this has been running, I know there's a good vacuum inside these lines. Let me back everything out. Here in about a minute, I'm going to close this valve. The pump will have no more effect. I'll turn off the pump. My next move is I'm going to turn this valve off to protect the gauge. When I turn this off, the pressure that's stored in here under high pressure won't blow the gauge or damage the gauge. I'm not going to open this valve up to the gauge until the electricity applied and it's running. Once it's running with the new refrigerant in the lines, I will open this up and we'll do a check to see what the pressure, the running pressure is of the system. Now, Another gauge that I have as to the health is, this is the electrical box, and I've got an amp meter on it, and that amp meter should read in a certain range. If it's anywhere around 2.5 to 3 or 2 to 3, that's good. If the pressure up here is in the right band, 411A, 410A, that'll be good. Okay? And the last thing is, I want to show you this. That's a laser thermometer. What I'm going to do with that is, when it's running, I'm going to measure the air going into the inside, top of the inside unit, and the air coming out. If there's a spread of 10 or 12 degrees, now what I'm hoping that's going to happen, and I may be disappointed, I'm ready for that, but what I'm hoping is when I put the power back on here and I close that valve, and I close the valve to the gauge, and then I release the fluid by taking an Allen wrench and backing both of those Allen wrench screws out. They both have to be backed out all the way. And as you're backing them out, all the pressure, all the refrigerant inside this outside unit is now being sucked in to the lines, and it's filling the lines all the way to the inside unit. Everything now is primed for electricity. That's when I'll put all the breakers in, I'll put that box back together, I'll leave the amp meter on, then I'll go in and turn it on. What I'm hoping to happen is to see that fan run eventually. I'm hoping whatever I choose in there for an option with the remote control, it works. If I choose heat, it heats. If I choose cool, it cools. And if it does that, and all my signals are here, if I'm within range down there for the pressure, and I'm like between 2 and 3 amps over here when it's running pretty hard, and I measure with the thermometer or laser thermometer, and it's dropping, it's changing the temperature as it goes through by 10 or 12 degrees, I'm going to leave it alone. Okay? Now, let's make it happen. Okay, I'm going to shut it off. I'll restart it later. But I'm going to zoom in with the tripod so you can watch me. Well, let's do it. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the gauge out of it. So the first thing we're going to do is take the gauge out of it. Okay, the gauge thing is closed. Now we're going to take the vacuum pump out of it. Okay, and shut off the vacuum pump. Now, the whole system is isolated now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start backing out. And I can hear the fluid running into the system. That's as far as that will go. Okay, both are backed out as far as they can go. They're both backed out as far as they can go. Okay. Now I'm going to put the electric back together and turn it on, and we'll see what happens. But the lines are pressurized now, and when I turn it on, hopefully it'll run. Hopefully the outside unit will run. I'm going to go out to the electrical box and I'm going to reset the main breaker at the electrical box. Here we are. Living room mini split. It's on. And now I have to put this thing back in the box, so I'm going to set the camera down until I get that in. Okay, we've got the breaker back in, so she's armed and dangerous right now. My next move is to go inside and turn it on and see what happens. Hopefully no sparks will fly and she will work. I've got my gun. It came on. Let's see what I've got my remote set up for. We'll look for codes. This is the time in the first 2 minutes. First 2 minutes when you're going to get a code. If there's a code, it'll come up. No codes so far. Are we going to get cooling air out of this? $83 going in. Okay, we're drawing about 1.86 amps. Okay, the thing is running like it's at idle. It's hardly working. The pressure for 110A says it's up around, it looks good. It's up at the 12 o'clock in the scale for R410A, so she has plenty of fluid. She's running like a top. there's about a 10 degree to 15 degree difference from the air going in, the air coming out. So I'm done. All I have to do now is successfully get a valve stem put in, a Schrader valve stem put in, and seal everything up, and I'm done. But see how quiet it is? It's running like a top. I'm very satisfied with it. Now we'll go in and we'll measure, and right now we're pulling 1.9 amps, but it's a cool day. It's not the hottest day here. It's not really working that hard. And I'll show you the difference. If I can do it. Alright. We'll point it up at the ceiling. And can you see that? Up at the ceiling where the air is going in above the thing. See it? Where the air is going in. It's like 80 degrees up there. Alright, I got a butt where the air is coming out, like right there, 66 degrees. So that's a 14 degree swing right there. I'm happy. I'm not. There I am right here, okay? Here. I'm happy what I have right now. I can't believe it's working like it is. The investment I made, hopefully if I get the Schrader valve in and I make sure there's absolutely no leaks, this should run for a long time. I recently replaced, I have 2 units here. That unit is for the living room. This unit is for my bedroom. It's a mini split. If you can tell, that unit is brown. That is the original unit. I went out and spent some money for that plastic pad. That was about 75 bucks. Those rubber feet right there were about 25 or 30 bucks. I did a great job in installing it. I did it myself, but everything is to code with great, everything works great on that one. I've got it serviced. It works fantastic. But as you can see, this one's a little different color than the other one. It's not the brown because it's brand new. I put it in about 2 weeks ago. The other one that was there was the original to that one over there. They came together. They were twins, exactly the same. I put them in, commissioned them, or got them on going the same day. I installed them at the same time. There's its control box, its breakout box. The other one, the breakout box, you can see it behind it. But this one arrived. What I did is this one, I go back here. This one malfunctioned the first year I had it. And I did the test on, took a YouTube video, and they said what to do to check the circuit breaker board or the motherboard to make sure the motherboard was feeding the correct voltage to the compressor. It wasn't. So they sent me a new motherboard. I put a motherboard in there, serviced it. I haven't had a bit of problems with it since. This one, I had a few mishaps servicing it. When you service these, you have to be extremely patient to a fault. When you squirt a little bit of coolant in there, walk away. Literally walk away for about half an hour. Let the thing run. Make sure you do it on a day where the thing is constantly under load. A warm day where when you're asking it to do work, it's working, so that you're getting a true reading. But be patient. Come back if the needle moves a tiny bit of it, a little bit. You be patient. give it a little more squirt, go walk away. I'm telling you, do yourself a favor. Do not be in a hurry when you service these, because if you give it too big of a squirt, you'll come back and it will be shut down. The needle will be pegged all the way to the overpressure. It happened to me a couple times with the old unit here. And then it started making noise. And the motherboard, I think, went. So I got a new motherboard, but I was in a hurry and I burned out the new one the same day as the old one. So the guy gave me a deal. He said, how about if I just send you a new one? A new outdoor unit. It'll match up perfect with the indoor unit. So that's what I did. And it cost me the price of the old motherboard I burned up, plus, well, it was a deal. But it was here in about less than a week. And I think the next day I came out here, and I have a vacuum pump. So I broke into the system right here. I took the power off this panel right here. That's all power. That goes to the wire to the inside unit, and the 220 coming from the circuit breaker panel. Down below, down under there is your refrigerant. So this one came pre-serviced with enough refrigerant in it. All I had to do was take the lines and do a vacuum test on them, which I did. They passed with flying colors, so I had a good system all the way into the house down to here. I connected the two refrigerant lines. I connected the electrical lines the way they were supposed to be connected, and when I got it vacuumed down, I let the vacuum pump run for about an hour and a half, and then I shut everything and I opened up the valves. And when you open up the valves, everything in the outside unit is, because of the vacuum in the lines, is pulled into the lines from the outside unit. I let that happen. I went in and turned it on. It's worked flawlessly for the last 2 weeks. No noise. It heats. It cools. Hopefully now I'll get a lot of years out of both of these units. I think I've worked the bugs. I know this had a bad motherboard. The first one had a bad motherboard. I've got it fixed. It works good. This one is brand new, and so far no codes. You can tell if there's something wrong when you turn it on inside. You watch that inside unit, within 3 minutes if there's something wrong, there'll be a code pop up on the inside unit, and I didn't get any. This thing works perfect. I'm very satisfied with the company, the rep that sold me it, the technical help I got on it.